The shadow is not always hidden in subtle gestures or whispered doubts. Sometimes it reveals itself openly through cruelty. When someone deliberately harms another, when they inflict pain not by accident but with intent, what emerges is not only the act of aggression but a mirror of their unacknowledged darkness. Cruelty is not random. It is a manifestation of what lies beneath the surface of a person's psyche, a discharge of what they refuse to accept within themselves. In this sense, every act of intentional harm is also a confession, a revelation of the inner battles they cannot face directly. Cruelty is the externalized language of the shadow. Instead of turning inward to examine their own fears, insecurities and inadequacies, individuals project these denied aspects outward. They're targeting others. This is why cruelty so often feels personal, but is rarely about the victim. The victim becomes a vessel for another's self-hatred, an unwilling participant in their inner conflict. It is easier to strike at another to wrestle with the unbearable truths hidden within. When a person insults, mocks, or manipulates, they are not just expressing disdain for the other, they are exposing the unresolved fractures of their own soul. The shadow seeks expression. If denied recognition, it forces its way through destructive actions. When people hurt others on purpose, what they are truly doing is disowning their own darkness, thrusting it onto someone else. They find temporary relief in this act, as though the cruelty can exorcise what they cannot integrate. Yet this relief is short-lived. The cycle repeats because the shadow cannot be destroyed by projection. It only grows darker and more demanding when ignored. Every cruel word, every calculated act of harm is evidence of an integrated life that has been banished but not silenced. Cruelty also carries with it a strange intimacy. The person who harms often sees in their victim a quality they cannot accept in themselves. It could be confidence, joy, authenticity, or vulnerability. Instead of embracing these qualities within, they attack them in others. This is why cruelty is often directed at the strong, the authentic, the ones who shine too brightly. The act of harming becomes an unconscious attempt to dim the light that threatens to expose the shadows they are unwilling to face. Thus, cruelty is both an attack and an admission, a weapon and a revelation. It is important to recognize that cruelty is not simply about power. Though power is the surface expression, beneath it lies fear. The shadow that reveals itself in cruelty is rooted in the shadow reveals itself in cruelty: fear of inadequacy, fear of being seen, fear of facing the truth. The cruelty serves as armor, a shield to protect the fragile self from collapse. To understand this is not to excuse it but to perceive its true nature. Behind the sharp words, behind the manipulative actions, lies a frightened psyche unable to hold its contradictions. The shadow pushes outward, desperate to avoid the gaze of the conscious mind. The revelation of the shadow through cruelty is also an opportunity for those who experience it. When you are the target of cruelty, you are witnessing someone else's unhealed shadow. This does not diminish the pain, nor does it erase the injustice, but it can transform how you respond. Instead of absorbing their projections as truth, you can see them as evidence of what they cannot handle within themselves. Their cruelty becomes a message not about your worth but about their refusal to integrate what they fear. To see cruelty this way is to reclaim power from it. The shadow revealed in cruelty is also a warning to every individual. What we deny in ourselves we risk inflicting on others. To avoid becoming the source of cruelty, one must turn inward and face the shadow honestly. It requires courage to admit envy, anger, fear or weakness, and yet doing so prevents those energies from emerging as harm toward others. Unacknowledged shadow demands expression. But when integrated consciously, it transforms from cruelty into insight, from projection into self-awareness. The act of facing the shadow dismantles the cycle that perpetuates intentional harm. Cruelty reveals more than the darkness of another. It reveals the universal truth that within every human lies the capacity for harm if the shadow is ignored. It is not an anomaly reserved for the malicious, for potential at every psyche. This recognition demands humility. It asks us to look not only at the cruelty inflicted on us, but at the small ways we too might project our shadows. To understand cruelty as shadow expression is to accept that the line between victim and perpetrator is not absolute but a matter of inner work, a matter of whether one chooses to face their shadow or unleash it onto others. Thus cruelty is never just cruelty, it is a revelation. It is the mask slipping, the darkness stepping into the light, the shadow announcing itself with brutal clarity. When cruelty emerges, the hidden becomes visible, and what was repressed declares itself in action, showing the world what the conscious self cannot yet admit. Power does not always announce itself in loud declarations or visible victories. Often it lives in the quiet strength of conscious detachment. To detach consciously is not to withdraw in weakness or to escape responsibility, but to step back with awareness, to refuse the pull of manipulation, and to reclaim authority over your inner state. Detachment of this kind is not indifference but mastery. It is the deliberate choice to no longer be controlled by the hooks others throw into you, whether through cruelty, expectation, or emotional demand. When people seek to provoke, they rely on reaction. They depend on your anger, your defense, or your need to explain because those responses confirm their power over you. Conscious detachment breaks this cycle. It denies them the satisfaction of pulling your strings. By choosing to detach, you declare that your energy, your attention, and your peace are not available for exploitation. This is not avoidance, it is a conscious refusal to participate in a dynamic that diminishes you. Power lies here because the one who cannot be provoked is the one who cannot be controlled. Detachment requires awareness of your own inner triggers. Every wound, every unresolved fear becomes a point of entry for others to manipulate you. When you cultivate detachment, you learn to see these points clearly. You observe where you are most easily provoked in and recognize that the reaction is not created by the other, but awakened within you. This insight allows you to pause, to breathe, and to separate your identity from the attack. In that pause lies strength. The person power lies in conscious detachment who cannot make you react begins to lose their influence. And what once felt like their power is revealed to be only your unguarded vulnerability. Conscious detachment is also an act of preservation. Your energy is finite, and when you spend it defending attack or proving yourself to those who seek to diminish you, you become drained and weakened. By detaching, you conserve this energy for what truly matters, your vision, your peace. The cruelest act of defiance against those who hurt you is not to match their hostility, but to rise beyond it, to move forward untouched, to refuse them access to your inner life. They expect you to collapse, to chase, to beg, to fight. Instead, you step back with dignity and build your strength where their reach cannot touch. There is also a profound clarity and detachment. When you are tangled in emotional reaction, the truth becomes obscured. Their words, their actions, and your pain blur together into confusion. By stepping back, you see more clearly. You recognize that their cruelty says more about them than about you. You discern which battles are worth engaging in, and which are traps designed to consume your spirit. Detachment sharpens perception. It allows you to see the structure of manipulation, to understand the motives behind the mask, and to free yourself from being a pawn in someone else's unconscious game. Power in conscious detachment also comes from self-definition. Those who seek to control often do so by defining you through insult, through labels, through narratives meant to reduce your sense of worth. Detachment removes their authority to name you. You know who you are, and their words pass over you without lodging in your identity. You do not absorb their judgment because you no longer need their validation. This freedom from external definition is a source of immense strength. For once you no longer rely on others to confirm your value, you become unshakable. Detachment should not be mistaken for numbness. It does not mean you feel nothing. It means you are not enslaved by what you feel. Pain may still arise when someone harms you, but through detachment you observe it without allowing it to dictate your choices. Anger may flare, but you do not act from it impulsively. Fear may whisper, but it does not paralyze you. Conscious detachment, the capacity to feel deeply while remaining anchored in awareness, to experience emotion without being possessed by it. This state of balance is a form of power that cannot be taken away. Those who hurt on purpose thrive on reaction. They want proof that they have left a mark, that their words or actions can bend your reality. Conscious detachment denies them this victory. It reveals that their cruelty does not define you, nor does it have the authority to shape your path. When they realize they cannot reach you, when their arrows fall without piercing, they are left with their own unresolved shadow. This is where regret begins, not because you sought revenge, but because your refusal to engage forces them to face what they can no longer project onto you. Conscious detachment is not just a shield, but a foundation for transformation. In detaching, you create space within yourself. That space allows reflection, healing, and the integration of your own shadow. It turns pain into wisdom and wounds into teachers. By refusing to be entangled in another's projections, you turn inward and reclaim what belongs to you. The energy that once went into defense is redirected toward growth. The silence that detachment creates becomes fertile ground for clarity, creativity, and strength. In a world that thrives on reaction, conscious detachment is rebellion. It breaks the cycle of cruelty and projection. It denies others the power to dictate your inner state. It reveals where true authority resides, not in domination but in mastery over oneself. To detach consciously is to step into this authority fully, to hold your energy, your peace, and your dignity as sacred, and to move through life with the strength as silent, not loud, unshakable knowledge that no one can control what you refuse to surrender. Strength does not always roar, nor does it always announce itself with forceful words or grand gestures. More often true strength is silent, steady and unshakable. The loud display of power can deceive, but it is in the quiet endurance, the composed restraint, and the refusal to be rattled that strength reveals its most authentic form. Silence is not weakness as many assume. It is the disciplined choice to let action's presence and resilience speak in ways noise never can. The loud person often confuses volume with influence. They raise their dominance, and attempt to overwhelm others with sheer force of presence. But this is not true power. It is compensation. Those who must shout to be heard, those who must impose to feel secure, often betray the fragility hidden beneath the noise. In contrast, silent strength carries itself effortlessly. It does not need to prod you, or demand acknowledgement because its power is intrinsic. It is the calm in the storm, the unwavering gaze that unsettles, the quiet reshapes everything without fanfare. Silence has its own gravity. It creates space where words cannot reach. When someone attacks with insults or cruelty, the loud reaction is expected. They want to see you break, defend, retaliate. But when you meet aggression with composed silence, you deny them control. They feel the weight of their own words bounce back at them unanswered and unresolved. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront their own shadow without distraction. It is in these moments that strength shows itself, not by domination but by stillness that cannot be moved. Silent strength is deeply rooted in self-knowledge. The person who knows who has no need to explain it endlessly. They do not live to convince others of their worth or their power. They simply embody it. The loud demand recognition. The silent already possess it. This is why silence unnerves the insecure. It exposes the emptiness of noise and the desperation behind the need to be heard at all costs. Silent strength radiates authenticity, and authenticity can be faked or fabricated. Restraint is another dimension of silent strength. It takes little effort to explode in anger, to retaliate impulsively, to meet insult with insult. But it takes immense discipline to hold one's composure, to channel that energy inward and to choose wisely rather than react wildly. This restraint is not suppression. It is direction. It is the recognition that not every battle requires your engagement. Not every provocation deserves your response. Not every attack needs your retaliation. By refusing to be dragged into chaos, silence preserves energy and redirects it toward what truly matters. The silent kind of strength also speaks through endurance. Life's greatest challenges are rarely overcome by dramatic outbursts or loud declarations. They are met in the quiet persistence of daily resilience. The choice to keep moving forward despite pain. The willingness to stand tall without recognition. The ability to endure without complaint. Those who appear unshaken are not devoid of struggle. They are masters of it. They fight their battles inwardly, and their silence becomes the testament to victories unseen. Endurance in silence is perhaps the most profound expression of strength because it reveals stability when everything else trembles. Silent strength also transforms relationships. Silence often escalates conflict, but silence creates space for reflection. When one person refuses to be drawn into reactive noise, the dynamic shifts. The manipulator loses their grip. The aggressor feels their emptiness, and the conflict burns out without fuel. Silence interrupts patterns of control and dominance, forcing others to recognize their own behavior. It becomes a powerful tool not only for personal preservation but also for dismantling cycles of toxicity. There is also a sacredness in silent strength. In silence one listens more deeply to intuition, to the subtle movements of the heart, to the truths the self demands integrity that noise obscures. Strength that is silent arises from this inner connection. It trusts in itself, in its vision, and in the natural unfolding of life. It does not need to declare victory because victory is found in the very act of staying aligned, undisturbed and authentic. This form of strength transcends appearances. It becomes an unspoken language of presence that others feel without explanation. Silent strength is not passive. It does not mean you allow injustice or cruelty to persist unchecked. Rather, it means you choose when and how to act with precision. Silence scatters energy. Silence gathers it. When you finally move from a place of silent strength, your action is sharp, undeniable and transformative. It is not diluted by desperation or the need to prove yourself. It comes from clarity. And that clarity makes it powerful. Those who underestimate silence often learn that when it finally acts, it leaves no doubt. To embody strength that is silent is to step beyond the illusions of appearances. It is to recognize that power is not in noise but in presence, not in argument but in certainty, not in domination but in composure. It is the strength that moves mountains without a sound, that disarms cruelty without retaliation, that grows steadily in the quiet spaces where others cannot see. It is the kind of strength that endures when noise fades, because silence when chosen consciously does not weaken. It magnifies what is unshakable within. Integrity is not an option for the self, it is a demand. The deeper layers of who you are cannot be deceived by appearances, pretenses, or compromises that betray your truth. You may convince others with a fast aid. You may even attempt to convince yourself, but the self knows. It carries within it an unyielding demand for alignment. A call to live in accordance with what is real rather than what is convenient. To ignore this demand is to fracture within, to feel the persistent dissonance of living a life that does not reflect what the soul recognizes as true. Integrity is not about perfection. It is about, with integrity, is to gather together the scattered parts of your being. The words you speak, the actions you take, the values you hold, and bring them into coherence. When these elements align, a profound strength emerges. You no longer need to manage appearances, hide contradictions, or maintain illusions. Integrity frees you because it unifies you. Without it, you are divided, torn between the mask and the reality, burdened by the effort to sustain what is false. The self demands integrity because without it the psychic cannot rest. The demand for integrity often reveals itself through discomfort. Whenever you betray yourself by agreeing when you mean no, by staying silent when you should speak, by acting against your own values, you feel it. That unease is not random. It is the self refusing to be silenced. It speaks through tension, through guilt, through the quiet sense that something is off. People may dismiss these feelings as inconvenient, but they are signals pointing toward misalignment. The self does not allow you to escape the consequences of disowning your truth. Even if you bury the discomfort, it resurfaces as anxiety, restlessness, or dissatisfaction. Living without integrity eventually corrodes the spirit. In it creates fractures that weaken your inner foundation. When you compromise your values for approval, you create dependence on others' validation. When you act against your convictions for comfort, you erode trust in yourself. Each small betrayal accumulates until you feel disconnected from who you are. This disconnection breeds despair because the human spirit longs for authenticity. The self demands integrity because it is only in authenticity that life has meaning. Without it, existence becomes performance, a hollow repetition of roles without substance. Integrity also demands courage. It is easy to follow the path of least resistance, to say what others want to hear, to blend into expectations. But the self will not be satisfied with that. It pushes you toward honesty even when transformation is the ultimate revenge. Honesty risks rejection. It calls you to act with principle even when principle costs you comfort. This is why those who live with integrity often stand apart. They refuse to bend to what betrays their truth. Their strength does not come from arrogance, but from obedience to an inner law that will not be silenced. To live with integrity is to risk misunderstanding. But it is also to gain the peace of knowing have not abandoned yourself. The demand for integrity also transforms relationships. Without integrity, connections become fragile, built on performance and pretense. Words lose their weight when they do not match actions. Promises become empty when they are not honored. Trust erodes. And what remains is a web of appearances rather than genuine connection. But when integrity guides your being, others sense it. They may not always like it, but they respect it. Integrity creates clarity. It draws those who value truth and repels those who thrive on manipulation. In this way, integrity becomes both a shield and a filter, shaping the environment around you by the quality of your presence. Integrity is not only a moral demand, it is also psychological necessity. To live in contradiction drains energy. To maintain falsehood requires constant vigilance, a continuous effort to cover tracks and hide inconsistencies. Integrity removes this burden. It simplifies life because the inside and the outside match. You no longer need to remember which mask you wore in which situation because you are no longer wearing one. This inner unity creates resilience. When storms come, you are not shaken by divided loyalties or fragile pretenses. The self that stands in integrity is rooted deeply, anchored by truth. The demand for integrity also reveals the dynamic of shadow. The parts of yourself you deny or hide will eventually manifest in ways that force you to confront them. To live without integrity is to exile parts of yourself, but the self does not allow exile forever. What is hidden returns often through conflict, projection, or crisis. Integrity requires you to face these disowned parts, to acknowledge the shadow rather than pretend it does not exist. In doing so, you integrate what was divided and wholeness becomes possible. The self demands integrity not as punishment but as the path to completeness. Ultimately, integrity is not about external recognition. You may live with complete integrity and still be misunderstood, disliked, or opposed. But the measure of integrity is not how others perceive you. It is how you stand with yourself. When the inner voice is at peace, when your actions reflect your convictions, when your words are not betrayals of your truth, then the demand of the self is met. This peace cannot be purchased with approval nor destroyed by disapproval. It is an inner alignment that no external circumstance can touch. The self demands integrity because only in integrity can you become whole. Only in integrity can you truly trust yourself. And only in integrity can your existence carry the weight of authenticity. Revenge is often imagined as retaliation. A sharp response that mirrors the harm done to you. Yet the deepest form of revenge is not found in retaliation at all. It is found in transformation. When someone hurts you on purpose, they expect you to break. They expect you to remain stuck in the wound, to define yourself by the pain they inflicted. What unsettles them most is when you refuse to remain where they left you. Transformation becomes the ultimate revenge because it renders their cruelty powerless, turning what was meant to destroy you into the very catalyst that makes you stronger. Transformation changes the narrative. Without it, you live inside the story they wrote for you. The victim, the diminished one, the person forever defined by betrayal. With transformation you claim authorship of your own life. The wound is acknowledged but it does not imprison you. Instead it becomes the soil in which resilience grows. Those who hurt you do not expect you to flourish. They expect their actions to define your limits. When you transcend those limits, when you use the wound as fuel for growth, you rewrite the story entirely. The harm they inflicted becomes the proof of your ability to rise. There is a power in transformation that retaliation can never match. Retaliation keeps you bound to the person who hurt you. It ties your energy to theirs, keeping you locked in the same dynamic of harm. Transformation severs that bond. It turns your focus inward, reclaiming the energy that would have been wasted on vengeance and using it instead to build strength, clarity, and freedom. The greatest punishment for those who sought to harm you is not to see you consumed with retaliation, but to see you thrive despite what they did. They are left with the knowledge that their became irrelevant to your destiny. Transformations also exposes the limits of their power. Cruelty seeks to control, to shape how you see yourself and how you live. When you transform, you show that their control was never absolute. You reveal that they could wound but not define you, that they could strike but not destroy you. This revelation is devastating to those who believe they held power over you. Their sense of control collapses when they witness you become stronger precisely because of what they tried to take from you. In this way, transformation not only frees you but also dismantles the illusion of their dominance. The process of transformation, how to rise above cruelty and regain power, is not simple. It requires facing pain directly, acknowledging the depth of the wound and refusing to let it become the end point of your story. Transformation means allowing suffering to teach rather than consume. It means turning anger into clarity, grief into wisdom, betrayal into boundaries. Each scar becomes a symbol not of defeat but of survival. Those who hurt you expect scars to mark your ruin. Instead, transformation turns them into marks of honor. Proof that you endured and grew. This quiet reversal unsettles them more than any retaliation ever could. Transformation also shifts the balance of dignity. When you retaliate, you risk sinking to the level of those who harmed you. When you transform, you rise above it. This rise is not arrogance but alignment with your true self. It demonstrates that your worth cannot be diminished by another's cruelty. It reveals that your life belongs to you, not to those who tried to wound it. In this way, transformation not only frees you from their grasp, but also protects your dignity, ensuring that the harm done to you does not corrupt your spirit. There is also a contagious quality to transformation. When others witness someone rise from harm stronger than before, it challenges the very idea that cruelty wins. It offers proof that pain can be turned into power. That wounds can become the beginning of wisdom. Your transformation becomes a silent rebuke to those who harmed you, and an inspiration to those who may be struggling with their own pain. The one who transforms carries more than personal strength. They become a living example of resilience, unsettling the cruel while empowering the wounded. Transformation is the ultimate revenge because it leaves no room for bitterness to define you. Bitterness binds you to the past, keeping you reliving the wound over and over. Transformation integrates the past but refuses to be imprisoned by it. You remember but you are not chained. You acknowledge but you are not defined. This is a victory that retaliation cannot achieve because retaliation always feeds the wound while transformation transcends it. The cruel may wait for your collapse, but transformation delivers the opposite. The sight of you unbroken, expanded and beyond their reach. To transform is to reclaim authorship over the self. It is to take what was meant as poison and transmute it into medicine. It is to grow so much that the wound becomes a footnote rather than the centerpiece of your story. Those who sought to harm you wanted to mark your ending. Transformation proves that what they wrote as an ending was only the beginning of your rise. In this they find their deepest regret. Not because you punished them, but because they realized they empowered you in ways they never intended. Transformation becomes the proof that cruelty failed, and that the spirit when aligned with growth cannot be destroyed.